So I think once you get an aggressive government, a county government who with a certain slant, there's a possibility that you're going to have dry counties, for example. I mean, which is something that's totally unheard of, you know. So you can imagine crossing from one boundary to another, and you can't buy any alcohol in the next county, because I mean that county has said that, you know, no liquor license.
So these are some of the things that actually the county government should be doing, the county assembly, coming up with laws that will better the lives of those people. For example, looking at Nairobi, and as we were doing this kind of research for I Run the City, we looked at the markets, and all the foodstuff that is in Nairobi comes from Wakulima Market. Have you been to Wakulima Market lately? That place is filthy. I just don't want to say it in any other way. That place is completely filthy. And if you imagine that or the cantors that come at night, they bring the vegetables and the fruits to Wakulima Market, and then the Mama Mboga comes there, she's in the Wakulima Market by 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 a.m. she's bought all the food stuff, she's come back to Kileleshwa or whichever other estate, and she's selling them there. And why can't we have markets, for example, in Kileleshwa? Why can't we have a proper council-run market in the estates? Because this will make it easier. I mean, you cook at home, and town is not home. You just need a market close to where you live.
But and you know, part of the issues affecting Nairobi residents, apart from unemployment, is the cost of living. So when you've got these big markets at Wakulima, and then food has to be transported, you know, by these using hand carts or these poor ladies on their backs, it increases the cost of food. So one of the things we expect Charles to do when he joins the county assembly is then to come up with a motion, the bylaws within our constituency, that we should have maybe a market in every ward. A nice solid market with refrigeration facilities, you know, top of the range, that you can even send a kid in to go and buy your stuff. Instead of having to wait for these poor women to go to Wakulima, Gikomba early in the morning at 3 in the morning. And you know, they come in a very poor state of affairs. And you know, even exposing them to thugs. Because you know, thugs in the morning know Mama Wanjiru is going to pass by around 3 in the morning with 10,000 bob. She's going to buy vegetables. They wait and, you know, kick them around and get the money. So for me, I think it's more critical to be worried about who's going to become your county rep, even more than the presidency. Because your county rep affects your bank balance directly. If they don't go out to the council and say, like for instance, Kileleshwa in the last couple of months has had issues with insecurity. If you don't have a county rep who understands that he needs to have a conversation with the local OCS, the local OSPD, then you know you're in big trouble. You're in big trouble. You need a guy who can go and have a conversation. And you know, like for Charles here, it's very exciting because it seems like he's running for this office, not because the county assembly is going to be a factor of production, is going to steal a bit of money, but he seems to have a genuine interest on how to take care of our good interest.
That's the other thing. To make sure that we can hold you accountable, what do you propose, you know, because you're a candidate, what do you propose for the people of Kileleshwa to do, the people who, if they vote you in, how do they hold you accountable?
I'm sorry to interject. I actually wanted to go about the market issue, but anyway, I mean, in terms of being held accountable, what we'd like to do is, there's already a ward office there. So basically, I would like to keep ward office hours, where when I'm not in the county assembly, I'm going to be at my office, where, you know, I can be accessible, where we can talk about the issues that that sort of affects us. And we can also, I mean, I'm trying to look at an inclusive leadership kind of model, where everyone will have community, you know, social labs, because we have all the professionals within the society. You know, I mean, for example, the drain which is perennially blocked in the neighborhood. I mean, those issues, we have those engineers in the community, and he's trying to get these people to come together into now, you know, forming this sort of, from community policing to also sort of community engagement in solving our problems together.
Right.
And that's how I'd like to engage. I mean, once elected, it's just the accessibility aspect of it.
Musyoka Mwangangi Steve is asking you on Facebook, Wanguhu, what made you go independent?
That's an interesting question. I haven't found any party which I felt that I could align my priorities with. Like I said, my background is in human rights. I monitored the last election. I saw firsthand, I mean, the follies of bad governance. And so I felt, you know, I mean, I could not be right with my conscience if I joined any of these parties who are pretty much involved in some of
In the bad
what happened last time. Yes. So I mean, and as an independent, I feel I'm in a unique position where I'll work with whichever party, even whatever MP that gets elected. I can still go to them and ask for bursaries for my constituents. So I feel like I'm in a unique position as an independent.
We're going to have another huge problem because there's all unlikelihood of the county assembly in Nairobi going to have at least 1/3 coming from one gender. No, well, not more than 2/3 of the same gender. So we have to nominate people. 84 wards in Nairobi. We end up nominating and to fill up this gender quota. We'll end up having about 100 or so people in the county assembly. Each of them earning how much? 300K?
No, I think it's about 189. 189,000, yeah.
So let's say each of them earning 189,000 shillings. And if the people who have elected, the electorate do not actually hold these people to account, it gets to a worrying position where you're seeing at it 5 years down the line and people start saying that this devolution thing was a sham. Because you're feeling it was just heavy government, no service.
And that's the worries. I mean, that with devolution, that we have to get the right people in so that we can benefit some of the advantages that you're going to benefit from getting these funds allocated to this to the Nairobi County, so that we can deal with our own issues. So if we get the wrong people in from the beginning, then you're starting from the wrong foot. And I guess the biggest challenge, especially for Nairobi, is that the national government also sits here, right? And the national government is more likely to claw back some of the powers that are given to the county if a county government is not strong enough. So the national government will claw back these things, and what we'll get is empty shells of offices at this county level who are not improving the lives of the citizens at all.
Because the national government is actually doing a lot of the work.
Yes, I mean, the national government would like to
do.
back. Yes.
Yeah, but again, I think it will depend on the kind of personalities we have in the county assembly, as well as the governor. If you've got a very strong governor with a strong personality, then it's unlikely that the national government will come on board. Which is why we need to be very careful, because now we've got we are sort of have limited choices. Like for instance, we have somebody like Kobia, who is running on an ACT ticket. Then we have Waititu, we have Mbaru, Kidero. So one begins to wonder, among all these guys, who best represents the aspiration of the people? Like for instance, do you say we are going to vote for Waititu because he represents the masses, or are we going to vote for Kidero and Kobia because they represent the future? They can go to Wall Street, cut deals with General Electric, bring some money for investments. So it's really a very complicated process that we need to evaluate carefully. But for me, I think the bottom line is we need to vote for county reps and governor, somebody who is going to create opportunities for everybody in Nairobi. Like, for instance, for Charles, when he goes to the county assembly, they need to see how they're going to increase opportunities. And part of the reason why maybe Nairobi is in trouble is because we've not had this kind of visionary leaders in the past. When they go to City Hall, they look at it as a factor of production. They immediately award themselves contracts for, garbage collection. They subdivide land, and then they forget that they're supposed to create opportunities for the nation. Then we start suffering. So for me, I think the bottom line would be, for these guys, when their first meeting, maybe the first order of business is, how do we create opportunities, get more people employed? That means getting a lot more investments and lowering the cost of living, especially on food. Give us more houses. Like Nairobi has got a lot of land which needs to be given out for people to come up with houses. So that if you have people who understand that we have a constitution and there is the Public-Private Partnership Act that allows for the governor to invite an investor to come and put houses. And I was so delighted to note that Kenyatta University, Professor Mugenda, is inviting somebody to come and put up private housing for the university students. So now we need a governor, or maybe county reps like Charles, who can go look for somebody to come and put up houses under that act, the public-private sector participation, so that we immediately solve our issues.
I think just adding to Dismas, I think what we've lacked is, sort of good policy. Like good policy even on business. Like set out business areas where people can do business. So your mama mboga, make sure there's an area where she can access the market,
right.
So, because the problem is if the bad policy, if you start from bad policy, then obviously there's no set out business area. So once she sets up her business there, after 4 months, the council Askaris come and take everything, right?
Yes, and Charles will have to come back there and say, no, you cannot remove my people.
Yeah. Exactly. And then you get these cult figures who are said to be people persons.
Yeah.
While, I mean, the reality of it is that they haven't put policies in place which protect their people full time.
Right.
What I'd like is even my mamas in Morocco to have their set out areas where they can sit and do their business with no problems at all from the council Askaris. You know, of course they'll have to pay a bit of council fee or something. But I mean, it's sort of perfect that no one is going to hustle them out of their daily earning.
And you know, Latif, so something else that the Nairobi governor and the county assembly need to do as a matter of urgency is addressing the issue of transport within the city. Because on average, people in Nairobi spend up to 4 hours every day they spend up to 4 hours every day for transport facilities. I mean, they spend 2 hours going to work, 2 hours from work. And what we need to do is establish a system whereby we reduce the cost of transportation, because we don't want to have up to somebody's income up to 40% being used on transportation, and that's a nightmare for Nairobi. So we expect people like say Esther Passaris, Charles, and the person who becomes governor to immediately address the cost of transportation, because that becomes a nightmare for every single Kenyan. And you know, the tragedy is they have to wake up at 3 in the morning, prepare the kids for school, and then jump into a matatu or a bus, which they spend up to 3 hours in the traffic jam, and do the same in the evening. And that's a tragedy for Nairobi.
Indeed, we are talking about Nairobi and how Nairobi is going to be governed after this election. Today we are hosting Dismas Mokua. He's the Vice President of Sadiki East Africa, a consultancy firm. Charles Wanguhu, he is vying as a county rep for Kileleshwa. And also we have Esther Passaris, who is vying as women's rep for Nairobi. And what's your party ticket?
Kenya National Congress.
Kenya National Congress, the Funguo Party. Welcome, Esther. We've just been talking about how the importance of having the right leadership in Nairobi. And we're saying even the women's rep will have a big constituency because the constituency is called Nairobi County. And it's important that we get leaders that come in with sort of visionary leadership and they have ideas on how to improve the city.
Nairobi has a lot of problems, and it's important that we do get somebody who can administer the city properly. 17 constituencies, and when you go across all constituencies, it's the same problem. You've got massive water shortages. Water that, you know, Ukawala, they have a problem even with their teeth because the water is not clean. The city should be able to offer clean water that people have confidence in. It should be able to offer clean environments. Nairobi is really dirty. If elected as county woman rep, I intend to, as my own initiative, come up with Clean Up Nairobi every 3 months. But we have to clean up Nairobi and give systems to stop people dirtying Nairobi. I mean, we have a culture of just throwing garbage on the road. Yesterday I was driving through Peponi Road and there was a heap of garbage right in the middle of the road. Somebody just threw it there.
That is common across Nairobi.
Exactly. So what we have to do is, we have to look for long-term solutions that requires education and housing. I mean, people live in such pathetic housing. And what's important is that the government realizes that these Kenyans who have to get up in the morning and go to work, and they're raising their children where the ground is sand, and when it rains, everything comes into the house. Yeah. We cannot have people in the capital city of Nairobi, which looks like a really massive cosmopolitan city, and we call ourselves the pride of Africa. And yet, 70% of the city residents live in abject poverty and are unemployed. And this is a crisis for security, a really big crisis for security. I think we need to find ways to harmonize and bridge the gap between the rich and the poor. There's no other way to save Nairobi. There's no other way to save Kenya.
It's really worrying when you see some of the candidates saying, I'm going to bring toilets to the people.
It's as basic as that, yeah, it's as basic as that. I mean, and yesterday I was in Kibera, and the people of Kibera were saying, oh, we want, I give them an opportunity to say what they want. Right. And they said, oh, we want free toilets and we want showers as well. So I looked at him and I said, look, you can't have anything for free. All right, what we have to do is empower you to get a job, and then we give you the toilet, but you have to pay, because at the end of the day we want to give you a job so you can get a house that has a toilet. But if you want to go to a public toilet for any reason, to pay is not wrong, because at the end of the day we have to pay for services so that we can improve services.
But then also looking at it from that point, I think the bigger problem is not really the toilet, it's the house. If you had a proper house, that house would have a toilet.
Exactly.
Because if you put up a toilet here and you haven't connected it to the main sewer system, what are you really doing? How are you improving Nairobi?
We're not.